Welcome to the Outhouse Lounge. Once again, I'm Chris Cordani, your host. We're going to have some fun today, like we always do. If you have some suggestions and ideas, well, just put it in the comments section. That's what we're here for. Here, if you're watching us on YouTube. Again, I'm Chris Cordani, and we are going to have some fun today. We're going to talk about action films. In the woke Hollywood era, and I'm trying not to get political, but I believe a lot of moviegoers will say there's something wrong in the entertainment industry for a lot of reasons. And one of them is fears of toxic masculinity and things like that being thrown around, or somebody whining about something. Fact is, though, people love their action movies. Look what happened last year, 2022. The biggest movie, Top Gun Maverick. And that was a sequel to a decades old movie turning it into a franchise. And that's one where one of the main characters was dead. Hey, at least they got the son in there. We could talk about that. We can also talk about, with anybody here, about how these movies have become even more popular over the years and why they're popular. But I wanted to do that not with just myself, with real guys, real people who've been in the field, action guys that I know and I've met along the way. As you might know, I've worked with a group called Project Sentinel and the London Center for Policy Research. So two gentlemen from those organizations are there with me. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, who is the author, by the way, of this stellar book, Operation Dark Heart. I have that. We don't have it upside down this time. Good. In rehearsal, it was pretty bad. Yes, I like it. Operation Dark Heart, and yes, he's the author of this one as well. The last line. I have a lot of the stuff here. I'm a collector. Tony's also the president of Project Sentinel and the London Center. Also with me is Navy Captain retired Pete O'Brien. He's the chairman of Project Sentinel and, of course, distinguished fellow at the London Center. We're not going to be talking about politics. But you can catch us talking politics, issues, and ideas on the Project Sentinel channel. We are going to be talking about something fun. I'm sure you gentlemen frequent these action movies.
Well, I do, and I think Pete does. I mean, I can't speak for Pete, but I'm a consumer. I'm critical of media because I think so much of what is produced today isn't interesting. Much of, to your point, Chris, of that which is successful is actually pulled from the past. Maverick, I was skeptical of Maverick. I didn't think it'd be all that good, but it is. And when you think about it, and Pete can confirm this, you don't need Navy Super Hornets, F-18s, F-18s to go into a valley in the middle of some remote area and blow things up. We have remote weapons can do that. With that said, the way they told the story, it was just a good old kind of good guy versus bad guy. Yeah. And they spent some good time developing characters, coming up and showing people had flaws. And I think that it actually presented a story that people liked originally. I think everybody watched the original Top Gun. I know I did. And it helped the Navy recruit a lot back then. Again, Pete can probably address that a little bit. And it was something that was patriotic. It was pro-American, had all the different checks technically in it, all the different, they had minorities, had kind of personal situations, and it was good. I thought it was something that the American public liked because it was fun and it didn't preach. And I think the preachiness is something that gets in the way of a lot of current movies. So that's
the big one. However, there was no beach volleyball. I would love to have seen that. I would love to have seen what was it? What's her name? Phoenix and Bob. That's right. I like Bob. Bob was great. But I'd like to see her and Bob play some beach volleyball against the hangman and the other guy.
Well, before Pete speaks, I want to say about another movie that is one of my favorites. And believe it or not, it's a Navy movie. And it has not a single female in the cast and obviously no volleyball. And that is Ice Station Zebra. And Howard Hughes and I could have bonded over that movie. Just saying, I would not have wore Kleenex boxes on my feet, but I would have sat and watched it. And not that there's anything wrong with a bunch of men in a long, thin steel tube going undersea. Just saying. I mean, I don't know if that's a value judgment or not. I don't know, but who am I to ask? I've never been on a submarine, but it's a great movie. It's very compelling. It's a great plot, a lot of drama, and it has zero romance, none. And I thought it was always great with Davy Jones, with Patrick McGowan playing David Jones, the spy, which I will always think that's a great role, something that I would love to see a remake of Ice Station Zebra if they could actually do it with a new set of things to go after, but the same theme. So anyway, but yeah, two of my favorite movies are actually Navy centric in their presentation.
And if I can chime in first off on Ice Station Zebra, one of my all time favorites, a truly fantastic Alistair MacLean book. I mean, just incredible book, and he wrote a whole slew of great action / spy novels, thrillers. I mean, there's just a whole raft of them, and Ice Station Zebra was up there among the best of that bunch, and a great movie. Just a fantastic cast. Alistair MacLean. Patrick McGowan was perfect as the spy. But they had a great bunch of guys. Each one of them fit the character perfectly. Ernest Borgnine as the Russian. Who is he good? Is he bad? You don't know until the end. Jim Brown as the hard as nails, unforgiving Marine captain. Rock Hudson as the truly studly sub skipper who just easy, relaxed, never gets excited. He was a model sub skipper, and just a great story and a great cast and perfectly done. And what was it, made in mid 60s? Does that sound right? 64?
No, it's late 67 because Patrick had to take some time off from
that's right,
from The Prisoner to go do it.
Right,
which was right in the middle of The Prisoner. Yeah.
But I mean, you look at that movie. There is no computer graphics, of course. The special effects are limited, but they still pulled off a great flick. It's a great movie. And Maverick, the two Top Gun movies, I've seen both of those. By the way, I watched Ice Station Zebra just last week. It was on some channel. I found it looking for something to watch, and I watched it again. I've seen it probably a dozen times. But Top Gun, I've spent a great deal of time on aircraft carriers. Top Gun is used as there are scenes in that movie that you run 1,000 times because you can start and end any movie. You can start it with the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes of Top Gun where they're taking off, and you've got these fantastic photography. The airplane's taking off, and it's all done. Turn the stereo up to 11, as they say, and just pound that noise out. And was it Kenny Loggins who did the opening song?
Kenny Loggins did quite a few songs in that.
And so you've got the jets roaring, and you've got the music playing. It's
Here's something interesting. I hosted an 80s show called Revenge of the 80s Radio. I had Terry Nunn from Berlin on several times.
Great song. Yes, I love that song.
Well, she liked the song. The band did not. And somebody who knows a lot about Berlin, that song is definitely not like a regular Berlin song. So what she said was, while she loved performing the song live later on, the rest of the band really hated it, which I guess made some sense. But it was their biggest hit. A lot of bands hate their biggest hit.
Well, I know. Well, I don't want to get too far off track, but one of my favorite soundtracks was of a movie that was very cutting edge for its time, which was To Live and Die in L.A., which
that's an action movie. That counts.
Oh, yeah, man. And, that was what Miami Vice wanted to be, but couldn't be because of all the gratuitous violence and sex that they showed.
Right.
Yeah. And I love Wang Chung, but that soundtrack to me stands on its own, but it seems like it killed them as a band for whatever strange reason, because I thought they did a fabulous job on this soundtrack.
They did do a fabulous job.
It
That
wasn't
was
a bad song. It was a big hit. It was
There was multiple. The whole soundtrack. I love that whole soundtrack.
I remember Jack Hughes even saying he wasn't very fond of "Everybody Have Fun Tonight." That was a joke song. They actually it was a slow song in the beginning, and then when they brought to their producers a little joke saying, "Hey, how about if we say everybody Wang Chung tonight?" And then the producers or the radio, now my brain's going. The executive or the studio people, the producers, the record company executives. That's what I was thinking. Like, hey, that sounds great. And they're like, oh, no, that's not. We can't be. And they did it. It was a big hit. But again, not really like the band was. I guess that's something we can get into at another time. So I do want to tell our audience we're talking about Maverick, but we're talking about Top Gun Maverick, not to be confused with the Mel Gibson, Jodie Foster, James Garner classic. That was, I believe, directed by Richard Donner, right?
Yeah, Jodie Foster was much better with Cherie Currie in Foxes. Just saying, if you want to compare performances.
But that was a good movie. That was a good movie, though.
I like James Garner.
Which one?
The
This
Maverick,
one?
The Maverick with James Garner. That was a fun movie.
Well, it's fun. Yeah, it's fun. It's not like an action movie. So,
No.
But yes, I mean, I'm sure,
The funny thing about these action movies of today, and I want to get into this as well, we keep hearing about how Hollywood is so afraid of putting together movies that are too tough, too, I will say, rough and tumble. Is that what the kids say, rough and tumble these days? Not sure.
They say other things besides that too. But
these young rapscallions are so afraid of. At least that's what they think. The young rapscallions don't want to see movies that have real tough alpha males. But the fact is, we're seeing a lot of them out there. Whether they're so good that they bypass the theaters entirely and go straight to video or straight to cable, or they're big blockbusters like Top Gun Maverick. We're seeing two things. We're seeing not only these action movies still doing well at the box office, but starring older actors. Not a lot of great younger actors involved in these things. And I still count Keanu Reeves as an older actor because he was in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
I love the John Wick series, and I know a couple of folks who works on that project, and that is work. I mean, for him to do the stuff he does, that's work. I mean, it's to orchestrate those fight scenes and going through and doing all that stuff, looking and acting like he's shooting people, unlike shooting people like Alec Baldwin. Just saying. No, I'm serious. I mean, have you ever heard of someone being shot on a John Wick site with all the guns involved? Yet somehow,
they know how to take care of guns. They don't wave them around, right?
Exactly. And like I said, I know some of the folks on that crew, and they do a good job. With that said, I think one of the things that to me is it's not really an action film, but I could not get through the last James Bond movie because it's so bad. I got in 10 minutes into it. It's like, I'm done. I'm out of here. Yet I loved the first Craig James Bond movie, Casino Royale. A little history for those who don't follow it. Casino Royale, the concept was actually based on the guy who wrote the novels. What's his name again? The guy that wrote Ian Fleming. Ian Fleming during World War II was a lieutenant commander in the British intelligence service, and he spent some time in Lisbon, Portugal. And Casino Estoril is the place that he served in Lisbon from 42 to 45. It was a hotbed for all this spy versus spy stuff. And so he wrote Casino Royale based partially on his service in the Navy. By the way, a very small trivia point. I met Gregory Peck at Casino Royale while he was filming Boys from Brazil, another, I thought, really good movie.
It was a good movie.
It was a good movie. So anyway, I actually, at Casino Royale, see, everything is linked, just like the 5 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. And anyway, my point I'm trying to get to is that Casino Royale, the first Craig movie, was gritty, hard-hitting, and I thought really did give a good portrayal of a guy who's deeply troubled, a psychopath who likes to sleep with women and kill people. Who doesn't like that? So, but they really have, speaking of the woke mob, have really kind of eroded any interest I have in James Bond because it's all like touchy-feely. Oh, replacing James Bond with a female.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
ridiculous too. His name's James Bond.
yeah.
The
Don't be wrong.
if I may,
I-
the other problem that's happened with the Bond movies, and I sat down and over the Christmas season, I watched a number of them.
That's a great. The original Casino Royale. I wasn't referring to that one, but that's a good one, Chris.
Yeah,
With-
not to be confused.
with David Niven, who in fact was about as close as you could get to being James Bond. And,
Peter Sellers.
Yeah. So a little trivia. So what song came out of the original Casino Royale that was put up for an Oscar but lost to My Fair Lady? Do you know what the song was?
I'm usually good at trivia. This
Yeah, I
one,
know.
my mind's
You
drawn a
should know
blank.
this. The Look of Love. The Look of Love
yeah.
Oh,
was up for the Oscar for best song, and it lost to whatever that song was in My Fair Lady.
Right.
So
Oh, boy.
yeah, that sucked. But it was a great song and a great movie. And Peter Sellers was brilliant. Not that he was a great action guy, but I'm just saying,
Right.
Peter Sellers was brilliant in the original Casino Royale. But that's not the one I was
Absolutely.
talking about. Just
no,
saying.
it wasn't.
But if I may, the thing that I find that's the problem with the Bond movies is that a number of them, and a number of the Daniel Craig ones fall into this category, but a number of others is that they would be fine if they were simply action movies. But the character James Bond has a particular if you will, persona that needs to go with it. And part of that is that he is on a mission. He's not the mission. And so
Right.
if you go and look at the first 7 or 8 Bond movies, which include not simply Sean Connery, but the folks who followed him, the first 6 or 7 or 8, the movie is about a mission. And Bond is simply the guy executing the mission. He is one of the organization's dozen or so 00 agents. He is not the only one. He is not the one who is known by every head of state and every intelligence organization on the planet. He's the least secret agent on the planet by the time you get into the later movies. And furthermore, the story becomes about him. And it's not about him. And that takes a whole different twist on the movie. If you go back and watch, one of my favorites is Dr. No. The character
That's a great one. First one.
plays in Dr. No is the character that Ian Fleming was trying to describe in the book. He is this incredibly cool, calm, collected, never gets excited, never gets worked up, perfectly willing to either play cards, make love to a woman, have a drink, shoot somebody. They're all the same. They're all the same level of interest to him.
Who doesn't like that?
Right. What?
Right. But
And he was
James
sent out there
Bond.
just to do a job. You're the next guy in the hopper. You go out and do the job. And so it was the job that was the focus. And they changed that over time.
Well, I get that. Another movie that represented, I thought, was George Lazenby's On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which was another kind of guy
I
doing
always
a job.
thought he got a raw deal. Yeah, I agree.
He did a
pretty
great
good.
He did his own raw deal, Chris. He turned down
Uh,
the follow-on. I mean, he was told by his agent. I met the guy. I met him at the Spy Museum when they shut down the old Spy Museum. There's pictures of he and I out there. And I'm wearing the kilt. He's not, just saying.
But he did a great job in that movie.
Yes, he did. I'm still my favorite's Roger Moore. I know a lot of people love Sean Connery. Roger Moore was my guy. I guess that's only because he's the guy I grew up with. I believe that's going to be something. A lot of the young millennials love their Craig, or maybe the kids like Pierce Brosnan. That's what the kids have posters of in their rooms, right? Pierce Brosnan. Not sure.
Right.
Right.
Mine
was
go
Roger
down
Moore.
and check it out. Yeah.
Who was the guy there in the 90s? Tim
Dalton. Tim Dalton.
That's right. He was good too.
Well, some people liked him because he was really raw. He was just kind of like another
He did
very
one of his
basic
movies in
guy.
particular. There was a woman who was a cellist with the symphony orchestra someplace. Really attractive woman. But I don't remember her name. But that particular movie, he did a perfect job. He was a
did.
great Bond. He was a great,
Absolutely
00 agent. And the reason was because they didn't focus on him. He was doing the job. He was doing the mission. The mission was the issue.
Well, and see, this
Bond
brings
is
me
a
to another
character,
movie,
though.
which I like because of the mission, which was very complex. And I think it may be another novel that you'd like, Pete, which was Where Eagles Dare.
Absolutely. Another
Oh my
Alison
God.
McLean book.
I mean, to me, that's got everything, to include the romance. And as I was telling Chris in the pre-interview, and we spoke about this earlier, a spy who actually knows what he's doing, is willing to go on dangerous missions, have sex while on a mission. Not that I ever did that. And actually goes through and does what he's supposed to do with success, and is completely exhausted at the end of the mission. I thought it's a great movie. And of course, I must add, because of, the perspective, Clint Eastwood plays Lieutenant Shaffer. Not that there's any resemblance to my missions.
That's absolutely.
If Lieutenant Shaffer went on missions to Europe, they may have looked like that. Just saying.
But that movie was a fantastic action movie, and they brought a little bit of everything in there. They have scaling the mountain. They have an incredible shootout. They have a couple of bar scenes, some fist fights, some fast driving, and then of course this wonderfully complex
plot within a plot within a plot. It was great.
Line, which wraps itself up on the airplane as they're getting extracted. I mean, it's beautifully done. Now, the interesting thing about that movie was Alison McLean wrote that book. I want to say in the '60s, early '60s, but it was before the release of Enigma.
Yeah,
and so he was trying to come up with a storyline that allowed that obviously it's a fiction. He knew what he was doing, but a storyline that explained how it was that the British had wrapped up every single German agent in England.
Right.
They wrapped them all. I mean, the reason was they did it. The thing that really clinched it, they did in fact have some very good counterintelligence, but the thing that really clinched it was they were reading everybody's reports. They had the Enigma, they had the code, they'd broken the German codes, and so they could access all of the traffic about the agents, all the stuff that was going on above the agents. They could piece it all together and figure out who everybody was, and they wrapped them all up. Well, McLean came up with a story, which I think was fantastic, about how they got those names. It's an awesome story. And I would recommend anybody who hasn't seen it, they need to go watch it. And of course, it has Richard Burton in it, which makes it all by itself and makes it a great movie because he was such a fantastic actor. And of course, he was married to Elizabeth Taylor, which has extra bonus points.
That usually helps too. And of course, another great action hero is this man, the great Johnny English.
Oh yes,
I always love. We were talking Bond. I had to bring this guy up, but I love my parody action movies as well. And this was one of the great parody spy trilogies, if you will.
Yeah. Well, to tease the audience, I hope that you don't mind, Chris. We're talking about doing something with great comedians and great comedy. So I think hopefully, if you want, we'll probably do something with some actual actors who were in some of the great comedies and some of the great war movies too. We're talking about that for future shows. So I think that would be fun to actually have some of the actors participate in some of these things. So
all are welcome in the Outhouse Lounge. I have to tell you that.
Yeah.
For those who are listening, that was Johnny English, the Rowan Atkinson movie trilogy. Tony, you brought up something that I wanted to ask both of you. These action movies are great. There's a lot of punching and beating and things like that. Sometimes great tactical approaches by these stars. Right. Maybe the acting's not the best, but there's a lot of interest. I like watching the Taken movies for two reasons. One, because Liam Neeson is fun to watch when he beats people up, and the tactics are really interesting. But two, the second one, and the first one featured the daughter doing, or actually the second one, having the daughter do something extraordinary. I like those action movies where you have an ordinary man doing extraordinary things, or an ordinary person who's put into a situation that has to get out of it or has to do something very much out of their own zone to save the day or save their family. That's what makes some of them interesting as well.
Well, but I would submit that
Die Hard.
That is essential. That if you have Superman getting out of a locked room, it doesn't mean anything. Of course, he's Superman. He can get out of a locked room.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you have a more or less average guy, and everybody at a certain point, everyone stops being exceptional. You're if you have 1,000 people chasing you, it doesn't matter how exceptional you are. You still have 1,000 people chasing you, and so this idea really gets back to the fundamentals of storytelling. You get back to the rules of drama that the Greeks spelled out 2,500 years ago, and that's what makes a good story. And it's when you go against those rules, and I would submit that this is part of the problem with a lot of movies and television shows, is they go against those rules, and it immediately shows. It immediately grates on the average human being, because the Greeks were in fact correct 2,500 years ago, and you go against the rules at your own peril.
And so to that point, yeah, Pete, I agree. And part of this is for some of those movies which lack that, they expect just the action, pure action and graphics to overcome bad plots. And I think that's something that a lot of the current movies really depend upon.
Right.
I won't get into, because I don't want to give them any time, but one of the great movies which I think, because Chris is going to ask some questions about this, I don't want to take his thunder away. There's some movies coming up. But one of the movies which I thought represents flaws, people who are flawed. Everybody has flaws, and everybody exhibits those flaws as a process of living life. And one of the great movies which I love, it's long, and has some of the best tactical scenes in it of any movie, is Heat, is Michael Mann's Heat, where you've got an ensemble cast of a lot of really good actors playing roles, and obviously they're all flawed people. They're all very flawed. I think every one of them has relationship problems. Who doesn't? They're all kind of going through, and the bad guys are really bad guys, and they show the bad guys in a way that's, I don't want to say sympathetic, but reasonable and realistic. And the good guys are all, good enough to be, good guys to go after the bad guys. So I think it's a good portrayal of, and that was supposed to be a miniseries that they decided to turn into a movie, it's a very long movie, but I do recommend. And I can tell you that scene in front of the bank, that firefight scene in front of the bank, is one of the best filmed gun battles ever in any movie. So
another great movie, and it's probably my favorite action movie. It is my favorite action movie. That has fundamentally flawed characters, and particularly the lead is Die Hard.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's where I was going.
And he is just a monumentally flawed individual, but it makes you immediately connect to the guy.
Right.
You're immediately established a rapport with this character. Within minutes of him appearing on the screen, you're feeling for the guy. It's brilliant.
Not only that, he also, or the writers also place the cop. Remember the heavy set cop, the regular guy?
Yeah.
They place him in a very different situation that most regular people won't find themselves in, but at least they have a character they can relate to. Not the Superman, not the Bruce Willis. Again, Bruce Willis is also, I guess, an ordinary cop who did extraordinary things, but he still had the skills that the other cop, the everyman, didn't have. But for that guy to go against the likes of what Bruce Willis was going up against, that makes movies like that relatable instead of watching a Superman do super things. I love the Rambo movies, but Rambo is kind of a Superman.
Right. That's the problem.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they're entertaining, but when John McClane is standing there on the roof, he's wrapping the fire hose around himself. He's asking, what are you doing here, John? There's some scenes there that you can instantly relate to. And having gotten myself in and thank God, had some friends who got me out of some scary situations. It's like, oh yeah, those thoughts do go through. It's like, what in God's name are we doing? Holy cow!
Trust me, I've been in that situation. I was like, what the hell am I doing here? So I get it.
It's hysterical.
Here's another question though, and this is the horrid side of action movies. Again, we love our action movies. We're talking about them here on the Outhouse Lounge. This is where we relax and talk about stuff. I can't really say the word here, but you get where I'm going. Something you brought up in the very beginning of the conversation, Tony, I wanted to bring back. these movies seem to force in a love interest. Most of them do, or a very large majority seem to force in a love interest. And Maverick may have been the worst of all that, the Top Gun Maverick, because they didn't have the original woman from Top Gun in. They had they had the character, Maverick. They had him walk into a bar. Okay. They had Tom Cruise walk into a bar, and there's Jennifer Connelly standing there. And for some reason, you're supposed to believe that they're together. So they had to kind of cram in their entire backstory in one scene just to force in a love interest.
Well, she was at least mentioned in the first movie. If you were carefully listening, she was mentioned as the admiral's daughter.
That's
right. That he had relations with. So it wasn't completely, but it was hard to bring someone back who would become a feminist and lesbian to be Tom Cruise's love interest. Just saying.
That doesn't make sense.
I don't. Maybe Tom, Pete. You can correct me. I think the Navy now offers sex change procedures. So Tom could have been going through a transition and become a lesbian too. Does that work that way? I don't know. It all kind of blurs.
That's my
anyway. He could have. Yeah, he could have become a lesbian to be with her, and that way you could have kept the original person. But
they forced in. They just forced it in, like with some kind of hammer and chisel, just stuck it in there. I believe that some of these Hollywood types think that women want to see either a strong woman character in these things or some kind of romance in there because, well, they think women watch chick flicks. Why don't we make action or take a portion of the action movie and make it a chick flick? I am going to tell you on good anecdotal authority that a lot of women do not want to see a love interest. They watch action movies to see some hot, good-looking dude beat up other good-looking guys. That's my belief, and again, my anecdotal evidence on high authority.
Well, one of the movies which I think it was most awkward in shoving in a romance. Maybe shoving's the wrong word. Anyway, inserting that's a wrong word.
Oh boy, was it a Ron Jeremy movie?
Well, Ron wasn't in this movie because it was filmed in the Philippines. Apocalypse Now. So
okay,
I love Apocalypse Now. Don't take me, Francis. Don't write me letters saying you don't like what I'm saying. Just saying. So I love Apocalypse Now. But the French plantation scene, smoking opium and getting it on.
In the extended version.
The extended. Yeah.
That was weird. Holy God.
Yeah, it's like, okay. Yeah, I mean, if I were Martin Sheen, yeah, I guess I'm going on a mission which I don't think I'm coming back from. Yeah, sure. Opium, sex. Yeah, what the hell? But I think it was just completely out of the, and I love the movie otherwise. I love Apocalypse Now. I love the smell of cheap cologne on a female opium smoker in the morning. Just saying, I do. It's great. But it, and speaking of action, Pete, I know, Pete and I've had some experience in this. The helicopter, look, I used to fly helicopter. I get shivers thinking about that Ride of the Valkyrie scene. And I've known people like Kilgore. Trust me, they're out there.
Yeah. They're out there.
And so, and I've been on missions like Willard. I mean, if anybody who thought, you show Dark Heart, the cover art for Dark Heart is based on Apocalypse Now. If you look at the Apocalypse Now,
we have that here again.
Yeah, so right we based, because my Dark Heart was based on my version of going up the river, and that I get the metaphor, I get what they were going for here, but that whole thing with the insertion of the romance still baffles me. It's like, what did that add to the plot? I still don't know. I still don't get
exactly. It doesn't add anything.
And there's a number of great examples. Ice Station Zebra being one, Master and Commander being another, where there is zero romance. The one woman appears for about 12 seconds in Master and Commander. The woman on the raft, whether.
But Pete, if you look back some of the classics, like In Harm's Way, I rewatched In Harm's Way recently, and the Duke had a big thing for Patricia. Is it Patricia Neal? Is that her name?
Patricia Neal.
And I mean, did Navy admirals have sex with nurses during World War II? Probably. I wasn't there, but I suspect it happened. I'm just saying, I'm not a Navy guy, so I don't know these things. But But they inserted that.
I'm just gonna make a bet here instead of it happening like you said.
Oh boy.
Oh man. So, but they inserted it in that too. And of course, what's that thing with the thing in arm where they're on the beach together?
Here to eternity. Here to eternity.
Here to eternity. Where Robert Hayes does it better with, when he's going to attack Macho Grande. we're gonna get Robert Hayes. Bob and I are friends, so I'm just saying. I'm going to have him talk about that scene. That's a great scene.
That would be fun to have him on. That would be terrific.
What are you leaving for Macho Grande?
Well,
I can't tell. What are you leaving for your mission? Well, I can't tell you that, but I can tell you we'll be flying in from the rising sun at 500 feet.
And I'm not gonna throw the women aside here because there are some very good action movies with female leads. I've always liked the Tomb Raider series. The
Long Kiss Goodnight. I actually enjoy the Long Kiss Goodnight
because there's always Alien and Aliens.
Yeah.
That's right, with Sigourney Weaver as the lead.
Right.
Terminator 2, you can argue that ordinary person in extraordinary situation. The
Sarah Connor and Terminator 2 was great. Yeah,
exactly.
I thought that was great.
And again, one of the great things about that movie is they stick strictly to the rule that she's an ordinary person who is forced into this truly extraordinary situation and has to adapt to it, and she does. But she's talking you, the audience, through the whole process while she's doing it. And I think that really adds to the movie is that you recognize that she's forced herself to develop these skills and get mean and get savage and it adds to the story.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, we want to delve back into the 1970s. Another female
who was
I love the brought into the same kind of situation.
Movie.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Foxy Brown.
That's awesome.
It was a good movie. A very good movie.
Pam Grier was awesome.
I used to love, and I told Chris this the other day, I loved Let's Do It Again with Bill Cosby, Sidney Poitier. I mean, they were great. They were great movies, and they had strong women in the movies with them. It was great. So yeah, I mean, these were great movies.
What was
they can't do them today?
The 80s had Avenging Angel, Kill Bill. There's the one. Kill Bill, the Quentin Tarantino movie that had the female lead. Look, we men don't mind watching women beat people up because if we're watching action movies, we want to see beatings, stabbings, beheadings, things like that.
And you got to have a car chase.
Yeah.
Car chase. The best car chase in movie history, in my opinion. Probably a few other people sitting here. If you have an opinion on this, put it in the comments section. That would be great. Check us out on the Outhouse Lounge website, by the way, outhouselounge.com. Had to throw a plug into that. Also, check out the Project Sentinel website. You'll find a lot of Tony and Pete there as well. ProjectSentinel.net. And, of course, Project Sentinel, the YouTube channel. Check that out. Subscribe to both us, the Outhouse Lounge, and Project Sentinel. Now that I've gotten
and we're not inserting women into the plots in Sentinel. We're not.
But what were you going to say with the best car chases?
Right. The plugs are done. Right. The plugs are done. Now,
he's coming up
car chase. The Blues Brothers. How can it not be the Blues Brothers? It's in a mall, and it's in a mall. That's it.
It was a real mall, too. It was a real mall. It was a real mall, yeah.
Brilliant car chase. And it was long. It was perfect. There were pileups, everything, people running out of the way. Things were broken. Glass
they got rid of
shattering.
Like 200 cars making that dang thing.
Yeah, it was a terrific car chase. I will submit that was the best car chase in movie history. I'm sure there are people with differing opinions, including yourselves.
Well, anytime you can include Nazis and Pintos in a car chase, you got my vote for a great car chase. Just saying. I mean, that was masterful. I mean, just
then you want to go rat race.
Yeah.
But there are a number of great car chases. Bullet, of course, can't.
Well, that's my choice. Yeah.
Bullet's an amazing one. The car chase in French Connection.
Oh my God! Yeah.
That's a fantastic car chase. The what was the movie? They remade it with. Mark Wahlberg and
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
because they use the minis. They use the
tall
minis in
blonde-
the new one.
the tall blonde girl. She's from South Africa. Her name is. She's
Yeah,
gorgeous.
yeah, yeah. I know what you're
I
talking
actually
about.
forgot the movie. Oh wow.
Yeah, no, let me Google that because that's.
But that movie has a great car chase, but the original one also has a great car chase. The original one had this fantastic car chase through the sewers of, I think it's Florence, but don't hold me to it.
The Italian Job. The Italian Job. They're
The
both good.
Italian
That's the one,
Job.
Italian Job.
Italian Job.
From,
Yeah.
there are a
Yeah,
couple
no, I
other
like
good
the
ones,
original too. I like both
Yeah.
of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
the Spy Who Loved Me had a good car chase in there as
Spy
well.
Who Loved Me had a good car
With the
chase.
Lotus, the Lotus in that. Yeah, I love the Lotus. That's a great. I always wanted the Lotus after I saw that. That was a great.
Ronin had a good car chase.
Oh my God, Ronin. Yeah, before Walt, what's his name became a pansy. What's his name? The star.
Robert De Niro.
Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
Yeah, before he became like, did he shrink? Did someone put him in the washer and leave it on the hot side and shrink him or something?
That is
Or is he always
about
been-
my favorite spy thriller movie for a movie that gets it right. That movie gets it right.
I'm going to go a little off topic here, and I'll tell you some of the great car chases were in a very, very short-lived TV series called Enos, where Enos Strait, the character from Dukes of Hazzard,
Yes,
became a Los Angeles cop, and he used his Hazzard County driving style throughout the streets of Los Angeles and drove his partner crazy. Yeah, his partner's name was Turk, by the way. There's another trivia piece of
Yeah, it is trivia.
Yeah, I couldn't get the one. I couldn't get the good one right from you, Tony, but I got that piece there.
That's good. Yeah,
but that was a good car chase. Some TV series have pretty good car chases too.
Well, I still like Bullet because just the deeper. That was a good plot, well acted.
It was a very good plot.
Yeah, the Steve McQueen character was very vulnerable, kind of very down to earth. I like Ronin, as Pete said, because this is one of those things too. Someone who understands how things work, like Pete does. It's hard for us to watch some of these things, spy stuff, without like rolling our eyes, like really. But they were able to kind of capture the tone and techniques of kind of how things happen. I thought that was very well done. And by the way, for better or for worse, they did insert a romance, so to speak. Romances often have inserts. Just saying. I mean, I'm not judging. I'm just saying that is a part of the deal, right? I mean,
I'm with you.
It is, and insert was made here.
Yeah.
It was made.
Tony, Pete, part of the other reason I got you here for this Outhouse Lounge is because I would like to know this too. As a guy who likes watching movies and has not been as experienced on some of these action-based scenarios as the both of you had. You watch these movies, or which of these movies can you watch and say, hey, this is pretty close to accurate, and maybe give me a couple where you can say, this is absolutely ridiculous and it could never happen in any scenario.
Alias. I hate Alias, this TV series. I can't get past an episode of Alias. Just saying. Movies.
Oh, I watched about 5 minutes of that and I turned it off.
Yeah. I can't watch that.
I have never bothered watching it.
Well, you got to, like, James Bond movies are all, you got to suspend disbelief. You just got to, because, it's like, none of that happens. And
we're about the character anyway.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where the best spy operations are those which are pretty much invisible. They happen without any real drama. I mean, Pete knows the best ones he and I have done. Well, never, they were successful and still are ongoing. So we can't even talk about some.
I had a boss who used to tell us that he was a real James Bond. He was a superstar. But one of the things he used to, and of course it's not 100%, but his line was, when it gets exciting, it means someone did something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why James Bond movies are so exciting, because Bond is always screwing up. And I'm serious. I mean,
that's right.
Yeah.
But he does get out of it. He screws up and he also gets trapped in those easily escapable situations. But he does get himself out of it.
It's more one of the series, which I actually, and I hate to say this because I actually enjoy it, and I've referenced it in my book, is 24. 24 is so completely unrealistic, but it's kind of fun. And who doesn't like seeing the late John McCain carrying files into a meeting as a cameo? I mean, who would want to miss that. I mean, God bless. I mean, that was just that right there is worth the entire series. Just saying.
You can't. If you went through any of these movies, some of the things that happen all the time are simply truly, the word is incredible. And Tony is right. You just need to walk into them and you suspend disbelief. You say, okay, I'm going to pretend, and it's like watching a science fiction movie. There's a whole bunch of stuff in a science fiction movie, that an engineer kind of looks at and, go back to my college training, my master's degree, and you kind of go, okay, physics doesn't work that way. They just defied all the rules of the universe.
Right.
But you don't care. You don't care. You just
right.
Okay.
So like The Recruit, I couldn't get past the movie The Recruit. I couldn't get past the first 10 minutes of that. It's like, oh my God, no, that's not the way they recruit people. I can't. It's like you're kidding me. Another movie which drove me nuts, which had to do with the Tom Clancy character on Amazon right now. What's his name from The Office plays the main character. The first episode, he gets confronted by the terrorist who's trying to kill him, and the terrorist doesn't kill him. It's like, no, he's going to kill the guy. It's going to be done. I mean, the episode's done. And what is it? What's that name? I can't remember it because I don't watch it. It's on Amazon now. Hold on, I'll get it.
I'll probably miss that as well.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's because nobody watches it.
Exactly.
Spy Game. Spy is another one. I can't. Spy Game sucks. The movies actually get it pretty right are 3 Days of the Condor, which is based on 6 Days of the Condor, which is pretty realistic. I actually enjoy Hunt for Red October. While it's a little bit off, the characterization is good. And Alec Baldwin, he wasn't a killer back then, so he was better. Just saying, not that I'm judging. But and then another movie which I actually enjoy, although and I have seen missions that develop like this, is actually The Peacemaker. I actually enjoy The Peacemaker because I remember when I was a young operative and people were saying, "Oh my God, you would never have a lieutenant colonel go get involved in all those things." Like, oh yeah, you do. And the Clooney character's pretty good in that, and you go through and it's a pretty good character arc. And by the way, Pete, there's not much of a romance in that, really. I mean,
no, there isn't.
Really,
no, right.
There's a strong female character who's learning. She does have her flaws, but she learns, and she ends up getting in situations that are pretty. But I actually enjoyed The Peacemaker. I thought it was very well done.
But for example,
directed by a female, by the way.
There you go. She knows what females want to watch.
But if you watch like the Bourne movies, I love the Bourne movies. They're entertaining as all get up.
Yeah, they're entertaining. Yeah.
But that doesn't take place in this world.
Yeah.
So what?
It's like the Matrix movies.
I mean, and a couple of them. I guess was the first one, and then the one. Was it the third one that he jumps into the river? And the one with that he wasn't in, the one that Jeremy Renner was in. Yeah. I mean, those are just fabulously entertaining movies. Fabulous.
Did you hear that? Yeah. Did you hear that Rainier is coming back as the Mummy? Did you hear about that? They're going to wrap him up and everything. It's true.
Oh man. That poor fucker. He got run over by a snowcat.
30 bones broken. Yeah, just saying. So it'll be great. It'll be like typecasting. Yeah.
The funny thing about accuracy, some of the parody movies have a lot of. I know that you have to suspend disbelief in a lot of them, but a lot of these parody movies, like Johnny English and of course Austin Powers, the Austin Powers trilogy, have a lot of realism in them as well.
They're very fun. Yeah, they're very fun.
And keep in mind, they did have Klaus Schwab play the Dr. Evil character.
Yes.
And he did very well. And of course, he's still the villain. Well. Yes, he's still the villain.
Yeah.
When it comes to all of that.
He keeps killing his cats. I wonder if
he still has his bald cat. There we go.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I'm with Pete. I mean, a lot of these are enjoyable, but you can't really, like, I actually enjoyed Clear and Present Danger with another Tom Clancy movie with Harrison Ford playing Jack Ryan.
Right.
And, Look, I've been in those meetings where you have to yell at senior leaders because they're not listening, and go before Senate committees where you're taking, just saying. So those things do happen. And it was fairly well represented about some of the conflicts within the intelligence community. So that was pretty realistic. That's another shootout. Pete, remember the Bogota shootout where he's in the SUVs and the ambush? That was pretty good. That was pretty well shot. And not many people came out of that.
That was a great setup for a movie. That was a very well done screw up.
Yeah.
Usually they usually get the ambushes. They get too convoluted from the movie perspective. They did that one very well. That whole plot.
Right. The Richard DeVoe we talked about DeVoe earlier because DeVoe was in Live and Die in LA as the bad guy, but DeVoe did a good job as the good guy in that one. So so it was good.
Yeah.
William, a lot of great shootout scenes in non-action movies as well. We can always go back to the old westerns and things like that. But again,
westerns should be a separate category.
Right. Here's another little arm of the action movie that the younger generation seems to like. It's the superhero movie. Now, again, these are people with superhuman powers, but they do get to kind of beat people up on a grand scale against other superhumans. But I'm the one, again, I more enjoy those ordinary people type things, or maybe the super spies. But again, a lot of young people like to take that action genre and enjoy watching their favorite superheroes perform those kinds of movies. I guess it has something to do with, again, like we grew up with the Bonds. They grew up watching or reading the comic books and enjoying watching these things happen on a superhuman level. Or maybe they're fans of anime, and a lot of anime action movies have been watched and making a lot of money recently when it comes to Hollywood filmmaking.
Especially Japanese anime with a lot of sex.
Right, there we go.
but the problem with a superhero movie,
right,
is that it violates sort of the prime rule of drama. The prime rule of drama is that you have a normal person placed in a situation in which he is challenged either by himself, by another human being, or by nature, really, the universe. But he has to be someone you relate to. You can't relate to Superman. And so I think what has happened here, and my beef, if you will, with the superhero movies that have come out in the last 20 years, is that for the most part, there's one or two that this isn't true, but for the most part, they take the Superman, they take the super figure, the superhero, and they strip him of the one thing that made him redeeming. Because if you had a Superman, a true superhero who could do all these fantastic things, he could fly, and he was faster than a speeding bullet and all this kind of thing. Under normal circumstances, the average human being, given those powers, would turn into a tyrant.
Yeah.
And so
there's a great movie about that too.
There is a Superman movie close to about that.
There's a movie that actually goes through and shows how superheroes becoming out of control will change the fabric of a society. Boy, I'm blanking on the title. I've actually got it. I enjoy it. Let me look that up.
And that's the whole point behind when these characters were really created, where they were super moral. They were excruciatingly correct in their behavior. If you strip that away, what you wind up with is because human nature, we all have our faults, and if you have a fault and you can't be corrected because you're a superhero, it's going to get out of control. And so what you wind up with is you wind up with these truly twisted people in these characters in these movies, and I think in a very real sense, it's a dangerous thing.
This is why I like the Suicide Squad movies. The second one a little better than the first one, but they took these flawed kind of former bad guys or people who were in jail. with weird powers mostly, and maybe not all that powerful, but they put them together to try to do something good.
Right.
And that I found interesting. And there was a lot of action, especially in the second one. And they did throw a couple things for a loop. But a lot of these guys, they aren't Superman. They don't have they have limits. They
Right.
have personality defects. They have pasts that defined who they were. And we got to delve into some of them, which are rather interesting. The only disappointing thing about the Suicide Squad, and I'll hold this to the day, is they were going to put one of my favorite superheroes in, the dog welder. But the director didn't really want to do that because I guess he was upset about his superpower. The dog welder welds dead dogs to criminals.
Nice.
Yes, it's one of my favorites. Him and Matter Eater Lad. If they can do something with him, six-pack Matter Eater Lad, the Defenestrator, and Friendly Fire, I'm happy. But again, maybe adding depth to these characters along the way, instead of just having Superman going, "Ha ha, I'm here to save the day."
Right.
That adds to.
So I'm a big. Well, the movie I liked best was, obviously, I have my ID here for Tony Stark, Iron Man. See, I actually use this to get into military facilities. They all think I'm Iron Man. It's great, it works.
There's a resemblance there, Tony.
There it is. Yeah, where's the goatee? It fell off. I don't know. Anyway, so I like the Tony Stark in Phase 1 of that multiverse. And look, Tony Stark is a very flawed guy.
Right.
He's kind of like Elon Musk. As a matter of fact, Elon Musk actually made a cameo in one of the early movies. I think it was number 1 or number 2. Anyway, Stark is a good guy, and Stark goes through his character arc over the series of movies. And I think he's humbled in the end by, recognizing that all these superpowers aren't what makes him human. As a matter of fact, there's some things with his dad because he go back in time and some of this. So I actually enjoyed the Stark character. But the one movie which actually illustrates what Pete was saying most is Watchmen. Have you all seen Watchmen?
Oh, right.
Yes.
Watchmen, but you've got the superheroes going in and kicking ass in Vietnam, using their superheroes to literally vaporize Vietnamese, with Richard Nixon becoming the master of the planet, pretty much. And and no, I'm serious. And Dr. Manhattan literally blowing up the middle of Manhattan. I'm serious. I mean, it's like it's what, and I think that's the whole premise. Like, if these people really existed, I don't think you'd want them to really exist, because if you have flawed individuals who have superpowers, their human flaws become amplified, and whatever badness they had becomes humongous and affects the planet. So I thought that was a really good kind of you really don't want people with superpowers running around. So
no, especially if they people have flaws. One of my favorites is I'm going way off on this, but there's a Red Lantern. There's a Red Lantern cat. It's a house cat who was angry. Long story. Has a terrible, sad backstory. He was his owner died. He was abandoned, kicked off the wasn't abandoned. He was kicked off the crime scene, walking around homeless, and some kids try to tie him in a bag, and throw him off the Brooklyn Bridge into the river. Well, it winds up this red ring, which is the Ring of Rage, finds the cat, and he becomes an all-powerful house cat who can talk and spit napalm at people.
Wow.
Yeah. I love it.
Awesome.
I love it. But over the last maybe 20 to 40 years, the comic book people, DC and Marvel, have really done a good job trying to add depth to a lot of these characters, and that makes them more enjoyable. Maybe that's why
She-Hulk sucks.
Right. I get you. Well, no one. She-Hulk used to be a good character, but not in this vein, not in this TV series. Besides, I believe that was a direct copy of the cartoon. What was it? Clarence Birdseye? I don't remember his first name, but he was Birdman. Clarence Birdman, attorney at law.
Well, I used to like that stuff, and one of my favorite characters still is Birdman. Some of those early, there was a thing. I love Space Ghost. Space Ghost Coast to Coast with Brat. I love that show. That was a great show. It was funny. We're way off track here because it has nothing to do with action.
Hey, Zorak was on the keyboards.
Yeah, right? I know. It was great. It was a great kind of parody, and everybody loved it because it was funny. It was actually, So, but yeah, no, I think the superhero genre has huge limitations. I think, the MCU, as certain people call it, it's really just not. It's not. It's all these Mary Sue's. Everybody's perfect. And there's no arc, there's no drama like Pete talks about. It's all perfection, and you're just supposed to take it and enjoy it. So, which people don't.
Well, I want to thank you guys for joining us for this one. There's so much we can talk about when it comes to movies, all the offshoots. We're going to be doing the comedies, maybe some comedy action movies, a little bit more of that. There is going to be a lot happening on the Outhouse Lounge. I want to thank you for joining us for one of our first few episodes. There will be plenty more. And gentlemen, Pete, Tony, we hope to have you back again.
Thanks, Chris. And let's invite some other folks back next time.
I will, and there will be more. Maybe we'll have a whole party here next time. Enjoy some coffee, relax, and talk about, talk about in the outhouse.
We have to have cigars next time.
I could do a cigar. Thanks for joining us on the Outhouse Lounge.